How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I'm going to review this one, the Azov 5319. There's a couple of reasons. It's cheaper than the Derry, it's more practical than the Derry, I already own it, and there's quite a lot of Azovs as well, so I just want to sort of spread them out. But I might do the Derry tomorrow. As for engines, obviously you want the top one. It's pretty decent power to weight in that, you'll see how good it is. There is no raised suspension, sadly, but it has already got 50-inch tyres. But yeah, it's not a major problem, but it does catch its nose sometimes, and raised suspension would help that. Right, the reason I'm going to go for chain tyres is a couple of reasons. First off, if you actually look as I flick between them, they're the same tread pattern, and this is kind of my point a bit, is like, obviously it's not putting chain tyres, or it's not putting chains on highway tyres, it looks like it's putting them on mud tyres, so not only do I think that I might have the characteristics of mud tyres and I've just got chained, even if they have altered the statistics for chained, as you'll see, I had a little test. This was before I even did this video. This is mud tyres. I drive up to this barrier, so there's no run up. It doesn't always work when there is a run up, but I was just doing it to be fair on the speed and everything. As you can see, I can't claw my way up. Every now and then, oh no, this one it actually did. So I've been pretty fair leaving this one in, because about 33% of the time it made it over. Most of the time it couldn't. However, I never once, in about 10 goes of each, was able to reverse it back off. And like I say, that's with a mud tyre. So now, again, if you just look at the tread, like, they're the same tyre, they've just got chains on. And I'm not trying to sell chain tyres, obviously use whatever you want. I'm just saying this is why I've settled on these. There's only one choice of mud tyre, and then there's chained. When I come up to this barrier, as you can see, it'll, like, no run-up or anything, just by flooring it, it grips a lot easier. Like, it did that, I believe, every single time it got over. It about 50-50 with getting the second axle over. However, every single time I reversed, I could easily reverse back. And the other way, like, this is trying it again, twice in a row it didn't work there, but that's fair enough. I'll show you how I can get around that, which again I can't do with the mud tyres, is just go on a bit of an angle. Now the front right tyre and the like back front axle left tyre has got to go over at the same time, and that's how I got over. Yeah, like I say, I'm not trying to sell anyone unchained or whatever, that's just why I've settled on these for this video. They claw up this rock. Basically, with me for tyres, I often forget to equip them until I'm 10 minutes into the map, so I then have to make a choice. Is it worth going back 10 minutes to put better tyres on, or is what I've got on good enough? And the answer with chained is always yes. Like, they're a pretty good jack-of-all-trade tyre, so that's just for me why, like, they're perfectly capable in this test. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be using. The winch, I've got the top winch on. The spare wheel lives like in sort of there's a cutout in like the back of the cab. As for frame add-ons, it can have, I think, everything, even like the seismic vibrator thing. You can have a crane under saddle, which is pretty nice. The crane does sit further back than you'd think, because obviously there's that like rear front axle. So you can't get like a crane, a flatbed and tow a trailer, because it does push it all quite far back. As for snorkels, you can see they're all on the roof anyway. I've gone for that mushroom one, but I don't really think there's much in any of them, to be honest. They're all just on the roof. As for like all the attachments and stuff on the roof, you got obviously horns, sun visors, the beacons. The reason I've gone for those two rear beacons is because if I put them on the light bar, I lose those ones at the back, and I quite like them on the back, to be honest, so that's why I've just put the like just the pure fog lights on. As for the mudguard, thankfully you can take them off, which I definitely prefer. It looks fine like that, but I don't see any negative to having exposed wheels. Like, there's nothing to catch, there's nothing, I don't know, I actually just like the look, to be honest, but I do think like it's probably a little bit better anyway. As for front bumpers, it's basically got no bumper on, or like compared to what you can add. That ain't really going to make a whole lot of difference, but it is worse technically because it's got two bars that go under the truck. That last one, in real life it might be good, because when you nosedive, like, that's going to punch the ground first, but obviously in this game you don't have to replace headlights and bumpers, so it's basically like, no, I wouldn't use it, because you're just going to catch the nose even more. If you really want a bumper, I'd do, well, that one is the best one, because it doesn't have any bars going underneath. As for the rims, there's only two, so that's the one I've gone with. They look more sort of clean. As for the colours, obviously there's all the usual colours, but the paint schemes, I actually quite like. Most of these are pretty nice. I like that one. It's got a sort of, I don't know, foresty vibe to it really. That one's got a more desert sort of feel. I think that's the one I keep on, to be honest. I quite like that. I don't dislike that at all. It's just I prefer the desert one and the forest one probably. That's what it originally comes with. And then that one, I don't dislike it. I've got kind of a, I don't know, MC Hammer, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, 90s music video, early MTV sort of feel to it. I can't really put my finger on it, but yeah, that's the sort of vibe that thing gives me. Like I say, I can't quite work out why, but I don't hate it. It's just, again, the forest one and the desert one I do prefer, so yeah, that's what I'll be sticking to. But anyway, that's the colours. They are pretty decent selection, I suppose. There's nothing too bad. So we'll take a look at the old beast. Like, I think it's a very good looking truck. I really do like this. This is one I wanted to buy pretty early on, and I was hoping it was good. And well, we'll see what you think, but I think it's pretty decent. As for inside, it's not old, it's not brand new or anything, but looks pretty cool. There's no visibility out the back. Obviously your spare tyre and everything's like behind there. There is a mirror over there, but I'll tell you, my eyesight ain't amazing anyway. I can't see shit, so that's as good as useless to me. But I wouldn't, well, I would do a bit of interior gameplay in this, but I wouldn't choose it maybe if I had to stick to interior. I can look outside and see my tyres though, which that's all I would expect really. I can see how they're reacting to low range and that, which would be nice. The horn. It's not crap if it was a car. Very nice horn if it was a car, but yeah, not even got the right note really for a truck. As for the rev counter, if you look like to the right of the, not to the right of the steering wheel, but it's blocking it basically, you can see the needle coming round now to about 2,500. But yeah, it's like you couldn't really put the steering wheel in a worse place if you tried. It's not the end of the world, but it's just something I noticed. As for speed, it's like very good. I was a bit late putting it in high there, but it sets off. Turning circle's not great, but this is what I do when I'm going places. Like, it doesn't drop out of high very easily at all, especially just going along like with no cargo. So just keep tapping the handbrake and it tightens it up a bit. Right, you look at the back trailers, look at how much some of them are floating in the air. That gives you a good idea. Funnily enough, they still look like the tyres were a tiny bit in the floor, but compared to the Cat yesterday, they were like, I think they might have even been over halfway in the floor, the tyres. But yeah, it's definitely got pretty damn good ground clearance. Like, catching the legs of the trailer has not been a problem or any of that. So we'll get setting off. The first thing I really like about this truck is in high range, in the high gear, it's just got a very nice speed to it. I always feel like I'm making progress. I don't get that sort of impatient feeling. Obviously sometimes I love splashing around in the mud and whatever, going 2 miles an hour, but when I'm actually just heading somewhere, this is a very nice truck just to head and get there and not mess around. I mean, look at it through here. That's in high gear. Look at it just going up and down. It's like an off-road dolphin through there. And who wouldn't want an off-road dolphin? When the word off-road dolphin came to mind, I was so happy I nearly rang my mum just to say I'm rallying a dolphin, but I didn't have time, it was early in the morning. But yeah, look at it, powered straight up that hill. Like, that's a big plus for me. Obviously, if you prefer low range, I would say though, out of a lot of trucks, I really think this one deserves high range. You'd be underselling it in a way because it's got such nice high speed and it's got a pretty damn punchy engine. And well, yeah, like as you can see, it ticks along very nicely. The steering, the thing with the steering, I would say, it is slow steering like the Voron, but once you're actually on full lock, there's more to it. So it's like once you have got full lock, you swing sideways a lot quicker. The Voron is like the worst of both worlds, the Voron AE anyway, where it was slow steering and it's shallow on full lock. At least this has got one of the two, and to be honest, I don't know, but it just feels very nice, fluid, smooth steering. As for trees, it took 2 out. I reckon if I put it in high, I probably could have got that third tree, but whatever. If you're going to hit one tree, you'll be fine. Just knock it out of the way. One thing you'll notice, no engine damage, as you'll see later. This thing is, I don't think I've ever damaged the engine except for water. Going through here, tiny little glitch there, but I apologise, I've got another bit though. I did in the end drop it down into auto this time, but I mean look at it, it's straight out there. Put it back in high, and we're flying. It does motor through a hell of a lot of stuff, even like muddy, boggy, wet water, which mud, I'll explain why that's a bit relevant to mention later on. Again, this thing is a solid beast, really. Look, that rock was definitely a meteor rock, it just knocked that out of the way. It's obviously not infallible, you can hit things and take like a little bit of damage, you get a 1-2 here and there. But I mean, look at it, it's ramping over some pretty massive rocks and it's still... This thing, you can beat the crap out of it. Like, the suspension will be the first to go out of anything, but the engine and gearbox, like, let me know if you manage to damage it other than like drowning the engine and stuff. Yeah, like you say, you hit the odd rock, you do take a little bit here and there, but it's definitely one of the strongest, or stronger definitely, vehicles I've used. So Black River Crossing, I just cut that first bit out because for some reason every vehicle is the same speed, like really slow at the start of that Black River, whereas after that tree they all spread out then, and the quicker ones are quicker and so on. Obviously because it's got diffs always on, auto is basically like high-low, so I mean there isn't much in it to be fair, but there is just a little bit more punchiness to auto. But yeah, whichever way, like, it absolutely doesn't feel like it's struggling. It'd easily drag cargo and all that through here. It's I don't think it's quite the fastest I've had over here, but it definitely isn't far off. Obviously there, it's rooster tailing a bit in auto. I just left it in. I swerved that telegraph pole. I was pretty happy. Finally killed one of them. I didn't know I could kill them, but I do now. That's right, tree. I'll tell you when it's autumn. I did actually kill that one as well for blocking me, but I'll... there's enough in this video, we'll carry on. This was just another, like... I came back... why did I come back? I think I rolled it somewhere, messing around. Plus, to be honest, I came back about 5 times, but again, look at it, never dropped out of high. Like, Off-Road Dolphin. Off-Road Dolphins, imagine if they made Off-Road Dolphin the movie, and then it went well, and then they released the sequel, Off-Road Dolphin 2, now with 50% more dolphin. Like, that's how good this is. Mud and speed and snow, it's even better in. It does have a limit on mud, as you'll see later, but it's a pretty damn high limit. But yeah, snow, it's like ridiculously good. Oh yeah, I think I know why I left this. I believe this was the first clip in the end. I tipped over, but it sat enough to where I could start the engine. And obviously I tried revving it to see what would happen. I slipped into like the ditch at this point, but it wasn't having it. And I just thought I'd leave the thing, because it's not the first time this has worked for me. But I built the revs up, stuck it in high. Because high splashes a lot of mud around, I'm basically drilling the mud out the way, and I'm slowly tipping back. And yeah, when it comes to doing this, obviously it ain't going to come in handy often, but... It did in this video, so it's like it can happen. Yeah, nothing really beats high range gear for flicking the mud about and digging your way down back to your wheels. Again, this was just to show you this is how good this thing is. When I was coming back, I didn't even go out of high gear this time. I just took the corner a bit tighter. And yeah, I mean, this thing is, when you're in a rut, or you got half an hour, you might be off to work, you might be going to bed, you might have kids to sort out, dog to feed. When you got half an hour, you can definitely get some work done with this. Like, it very rarely lets you down, sort of thing, and it moves at a very nice pace. So shallow snow, high gear, absolutely no problem. You'll see deep snow isn't really a problem, to be honest. Them barriers, like I say, this the chain, the chain just seemed to grip onto the barrier and lift you up. It's not that the mud tyres didn't have the, you know, the power or whatever, but that's never failed for me as well. If driving over straight does, then just driving over on an angle. As you can see from tyre marks, this was my second attempt. One, I just felt like it. I wasn't 100% happy with the first go, even though it wasn't slow. Look at it, I'm still in high. But yeah, I went back for attempt number 2. The first one glitched anyway, so I was lucky I did. As you've seen though, high gear, drove up there, along there and out there, absolutely no problem. This is where I think chained help a bit as well. They bite onto those icy bare rocks a bit better. Down here, like, fine, to be honest. It didn't even catch its bumper. That's what I was going to say, is like, it does catch its nose a bit, but it really isn't ridiculous at all. It's just, yeah, it does it every now and then. right now I'd usually recover to garage, so this would get cut out, and I apologise because it's going to glitch and it's pissed me right off, but I seen them pipes and I was like, oh, I'm going to go for it. And then I managed to get up here. Obviously I have damaged, I burst a wheel, damaged the fuel tank and the suspension, but I'm only going to recover. Those boxes, they couldn't handle it. They can't believe what they've just seen. So yeah, that's how you get over walls. And basically, I won't leave this in, but I managed to drive all the way through them trees and had to ram through a lot of branches, and I got out the other side, climbed the mountain with a burst tyre. This thing, it does, even if you damaged it, it just keeps going. So, cargo and turning test. I pull off forward before I even start steering. If I'd already gone full lock, obviously this would have done better before I set off, but I was obviously not giving it any free rides or anything. Like, yeah, turning circles not the best, to be honest. It's like average, there is worse. Obviously the twin steer and stuff like that's worse, but like I say, if you actually give it time to get in full lock first, it's like, it is better, but you have to give it that chance. Like you seen there when I just let off the accelerator. Yeah, just giving the tyres time to swing over. It's funny because these actually, when you let go of the steering, these float back like the old way, but I think it's good. They should just leave it like this. But obviously when they updated the steering with the Tayga, you'd be like full lock left, and you'd let go of the steering and just go to feed a bit of right in to calm down the left steering. But the new way, it pings the wheels back to the centre, and then you're adding right steering, and that's where I was like, I was hitting everything for a few days. But I like this the way it is. They should just leave it. I left that in as well. It motors along pretty, like say, even my cargo, it flies. Obviously that's the trailer from yesterday. It did fine over here. The only reason like that it stops now, as you can see at the front, there's one of these big trees that are in the mud, and that's what got the cat yesterday. So again, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and just like almost all the other tests haven't had one of those trees there, and I don't know how to get rid of it, but I've ran over it, I've tried winching it and all sorts. Yeah, as soon as it got over that, like, it carried on again, and it got itself over. See, even there, like, I knew it would miss that trailer, as the Voron just always let you down and hit something that you were trying to miss. Whereas this, as long as you give it time, it happens. I do this attempt again, that's why I've cut bits out, but if you look, I've got a burst tyre. It still goes through there in high gear. I clipped a rock pretty hard back before. I cut it out because just for time's sakes, but... And then when I go through that bit, I do actually hit that, but the right front tyre is the one that's burst. So I came back, just to let you know, I got through the course just fine with the tyre as it was. But obviously, for fairness sakes, I just came back with, like, good tyres again. Gets through here fine. I did, obviously, that happened. To be honest, as you know, if you play this game, it's a bit of a troll. Sometimes you can hit something and get 40 damage, and it's like, really? Other times you can hit something and get nothing. Like, I still think it's pretty tough, but yeah, every now and then you'll hit something like that and take a little, well, a decent chunk. But if you look at the bottom, there's a lot of life still left in the suspension. A lot of them would have like a good quarter to half missing when you smack it like that. And in high gear, I was obviously feathering it a little bit, giving it time to turn, but yeah, once you do, like, it's got a nice deep turning angle, which I like. Or for what it is anyway. Maybe you just naturally make allowances because it's a bigger vehicle, like the twin steer. That doesn't bother me as much as the Voron did, because the Voron's like a little truck that should feel nimble. As for views inside, I know every truck's got like an A-pillar, but that does feel like it's sat right in the way. But it could just, obviously it's this angle of corner, but I just thought I'd mention it. Yeah, interior views are pretty nice though. The dashboard and everything is low enough that it doesn't really block your horizon. So that's the main thing really as far as interior view goes, I suppose. As you can see, like, those rocks don't disappear. I can still see where they are, which means I can, yeah, aim just to the right of them and not hit them. So yeah, interior view, not too bad. Obviously there's no rear, like, you can't look out a back window, so I knew it'd hit its nose there. Obviously a lot of stuff does, but yeah, the nose isn't bad on this, but it's not the best. I'd say it's like a 7 out of 10. If it had raised suspension, it'd probably bump it up to like 8, 8.5 out of 10. I'll just cut it here. To be honest, my cat jumped up now, or about a second ago, and I looked round, and when I looked back, I was like, Jesus Christ, I missed that corner by a long shot. See, with a pumped up tyre, I got through there, so like I say, it's not ridiculous, but it's just not the best truck in the game for it. This is another reason, by the way, I like chain tyres, is they grip up the lips of these rocks. And you remember one of the few vehicles that suffered here was the Dan, because when one vehicle went up, one tyre went up that lip, it slid along, and that was in mud tyres, whereas the chained ones really don't do that. Funnily enough, it clawed back up that rock. I was just kind of floor it, you know, like Jeremy Clarkson, just power, but if I'd actually waited, I could have stayed on the rock. However, I knew the other eventuality was it will just dive in the water, and this thing really does not care about water. That snorkel, like the little mushroom thing on top of the, just in front of the left-hand beacon, is a snorkel, so, like, she goes pretty deep. Again, hit the nose there. But once I go through it, if you look at it, like auto, it's absolutely flying. That's bloody deep snow as well. And now, put it in high, it even goes along. This alternates between shallow and deep snow, but even in high, it doesn't just dig down and wheel spin. You actually get little bursts of like high range on the shallow bits, and then it's half and half. It's one of the quickest things I own on snow. I mean, see, the turning angle was enough to get around that corner. I wasn't even thinking about the next corner, to be honest. I was just looking if I could make it under the pipe. This was the first time. Again, burst tyre, front right corner, so probably the worst one to be burst at the minute. And it still got through there just fine. So, yeah, this thing is ridiculously good in snow. So next up is this, and this is where, to be honest, you'll see its limit, and that's why I felt it was important to mention like the other places with pretty deep, muddy, sloppy mud pits, because it flies through them. Once it, see here in auto, it's like, it's going pretty good in some pretty deep mud, but as soon as you get that nose like down like that, it basically doesn't get any better than this. It just keeps getting like slower and slower. Obviously, I knew what I was doing there, by the way. It was not just splashing around in the mud. I was seeing, if I floored it in high, if the rear would sink down, and it'd kind of level the truck out and bring the nose up a bit. But it didn't really work. There's not really a lot of weight on the back at the minute anyway, so it just, yeah, basically stayed at the angle it is. I'll cut it here pretty much, but in the end I winched to a tree, and I drove out on the side like this. And obviously now you can see it's still pretty deep mud, and it drives along just fine in it, but once you hit that limit, like where I just did, there's no like slow crawl. Also, just to let you know, I've cut it out for time, but I did come back in mud tyres and there was no difference. The reason I left this bit in is because if you look there, it was quite interesting how it sort of should have stayed on its roof then, but it really wanted to get back to like the side. That's how much weight's in the chassis. There's not really any in the cab. I have to say, this is rare, but it happened to me, so I left it in. A little panic winch at the end. If I was playing in my own time, I would have tried instantly rescuing that, but because I was getting footage, I hesitated for a second, like, well, shall I just let it roll or what? But either way, I don't care, like, it rolled. I hit a bad angle, like, it rarely happens, but it happened. I mean, look at it, up through the mountains, it's pretty damn decent, to be honest. This thing is definitely... I get there, it scraped his nose a tiny bit. Again, you soon get used to like the ways to avoid that, but all up that rock, which a lot of trucks don't like. I do think that's where the mud tyres would skid more on that rock than the chain. But yeah, like it clips its nose, not as good through that dip as like the Cat CT80 was yesterday. See, that rock to my right is like, I skimmed my nose on that before, that's why I went round to the left. So that was just a bit of a cleaner run where I already knew which way to sort of weave and stuff really. As for a rolling test, like I say, all the weight's in the base. I believe it would have got back to its wheels, but that tree was in the way. So I'm going to have to get the tail going. I'm not trying to sell this thing to you because it's free anyway, but... I mean, yeah. Meanwhile, in goddamn Russia. Both of these things are pretty serious pieces of kit, to be honest. So anyway, White Western Star Hill. Seems to be enjoying itself. So it rolls back here, it was my fault. I hit L1 at a pretty bad time and I kind of knocked it out of gear or something, but it showed pretty well that it kind of rolled down, got its grip back, drove straight back up. Like I say, it's definitely bloody good, even in snow, like even on the bare rocks. It's especially on its own. I'd say as well with like light cargo and stuff. You'll see later, and obviously in the quarry test with the heavy cargo, it's pretty damn good as well. In snow though, it is ridiculously good, and it has a tendency to do. I'm glad it did this because it's not the first time it's done it. Right, you think, oh, it's on its roof, but there's so much weight, like I showed you earlier in that chassis. It got it round to this point where I can at least start the engine, and again, this wasn't just, oh, convenient for the video. It's like I've done it. This has happened quite a bit. And then obviously, yeah, I'm able to winch, and I'm off. To be honest, right now, I wasn't even looking, I was choosing a song on my iPhone to listen to, so I wasn't even looking, I just stuck it in reverse, kept it full lock, and yeah, I realised about now. I ended up picking Starship. Nothing's going to stop us now. Felt pretty appropriate, because this thing definitely rams its way through a lot of stuff. Yeah, it's definitely a beast. That was a contender for a thumbnail there, going up that pretty steep hill. So anyway, off to the quarry to do the heavy cargo tests. As you can see, my mum's packed me sandwiches. I'm on my way. I'm taking this bloody thing because every goddamn time something happens and I have to load Zimnigorsk and bring a loaf. So look at it, you just wear it like a backpack. No trouble at all, so I'm taking it with me. I only stopped now, I just winched it to make sure it will follow me through the gate. But like I say, I left him behind, but it's just so I don't have to load Zimnigorsk up. Down here, it hit its nose. That trailer didn't stop it. I think it was just coincidence that it punched the trailer and then hit its nose. I left this in. This, like, it's happened to me with, say, a few vehicles. I definitely don't think it's a problem with this or anything. You'll see me ragging the trailer around plenty in the next few minutes. I just thought I'd leave it in, though it did happen, but again, it's randomly happened with a few vehicles. Those rocks there, I'd say that's a meaty rock leaning on a juicy rock. And it shoves rocks out the way or drives over them pretty damn well, to be honest. One of the better in the game, I would say. See here, you sort of think, oh, it's not going to make it. Once you're at full lock, it's like, it does a little bit better than you expect. The Voron was a little bit worse, so the Voron might be over all the tighter turning circle, but I don't know, there's just, well, I don't think it is actually, but there was just something about it that always let you down. You always felt on the bad side with the Voron, whereas this is like, just gets that little bit more than what you were hoping for, really, when it turns. So as you can see here, this is where stuff like this is a benefit. It's a very, like, long, pretty weighty truck, really, with a chassis, not the cab, but the weight of this trailer can't overpower me like it did in a lot of them, like the Cat, the Zix, because they're very light trucks. Like, once the trailer's tipping to the side, it can just overpower you and flick you over. With this, obviously, not only it couldn't, but it drove up this hill pretty damn easily as well. I put the handbrake on because one of those little stones was what stopped me with the Cat, but then when I let off the handbrake I rolled down a bit. So you can see though, the start, you see there where the tyres were getting wobbly leg a bit. I don't really like it when they do that. Like, I'd rather they just wheel spin, but I took a little run up. I had to take a run up and stuff with the Cat, so it's not really anything major. It's heavy cargo as well, but yeah. Get up there, the nose, because the thing's pretty weighty, it doesn't really jump its nose up. No damage hitting that, and then it sort of rubs itself off the post and it's round the corner, so it's definitely, like, if you remember the Cat, I hit that telegraph pole really low speed with a Cat, and it damaged it quite a lot. Again, this wasn't necessarily going to stay in, but obviously, I don't know, it just seems to become a thing now. I'd sort of feel bad if I left it out for the sakes of like 30 seconds a minute worth of clip. I'll be honest, at this point I thought, yeah, it'll walk this. That was my gut feeling anyway. As you can see, for now I'm only in like first range auto, first gear auto, whatever. And yeah, I got to here and I was like, slowing down a little bit, but it looked like, oh, this is good though, it's got it. However, I get to here and not only does it stop and I did do repeated attempts. You can see, and this is what I don't like about any vehicles, and I love this vehicle, I bought it, I own it, I kept it, so... But yeah, I'm not going to obviously hide its flaws, like its wheels have stopped pulling, and I don't like that. I'd rather it wheel span. It walked up that quarry with ease, but obviously somewhere between the quarry and that is the limit. It flipped over, and just to show you, this was no joke when it flipped over. Here's me trying to pull it over with a Tiger. Obviously if I detached the trailer off it, it would have been easier, but I disconnected the winch. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot to reel the winch in. So I did it again. It sounds like the Tiger's not revving much, but I'm flat out, I can assure you of that. Basically, the trailer's hitting that rock, so it won't let me pull it fully over. And, yeah, well, you all should know by now what that means. Got to bring in the daddy. See, it's a goddamn horse of a vehicle. That was no joke either, I can't stage that. That just flipped a bloody Azov and a semi-trailer. It's a monster. I even had to wedge the Tiger against the rocks because I just nothing, even the Tiger couldn't do it. I needed something, but this little pair, I tell ya, this thing's made out of the hammer and sickle on the USSR flag. I mean, look at it. Was I worried? Nope. Lands on its wheels as usual, and I'm off. I mean, look at it. What am I smuggling ganja or something now in the back? I mean, this thing during Prohibition. What Prohibition? This would have made sure everybody was pissed up in a timely fashion. That's probably why Russia's always drinking vodka, because this goddamn thing delivers it every time. I mean, look at it, walks up the hill. I was just, you know, why not? Look, it turns like a housefly. 2 engine damage ain't gonna stop me. But yeah, I mean, well, look at the turning circle. It's a beast. At this point, obviously, I was like, I know I'll be fine, so I'm just gonna send it. I mean, look at it. Look at it, it's just like, bites onto them rocks, doesn't want to fall anymore, so it bit on and rolled itself. And then when I was coming around here, the reason I had to wedge the Tiger on those rocks is because I tried to wedge this thing here, and its winch is long enough to reach the Azov from here, but it kept driving up the bloody thing. I couldn't find anywhere that I could wedge it behind. That's what a horse of a vehicle is. Look at it, how it just dominates this rock because it can, because it's there. And then I fancied a little free ride, so I was like, whee! Like, get it up, Azov. Unfortunately, when I switched to the Azov, it did glitch through the trailer, which has not been happening a lot. I thought it was fully fixed, but obviously not. And it was a bit of a shame. I would have took the little low for a ride then, but just keep watching. Anyway, I'm in White Valley now, and I was just eyeballing around. I was like, do you know what? I haven't been up this mountain yet, and I'm not very happy about that. And I know this is the truck to do it. First attempt. I was quite happy with the amount of rolls. What are we on? 4? Or it might be 5. I think I got 6 rolls anyway. Nailed that tree, landed on its wheels. Certainly not unusual, it lands on its wheels most of the time. That little tree. Like, why'd you have to wreck it every time I do something nice? One of you little bastards has to be there. But I wiped a small part of the forest out, which did cheer me up a little bit. But effectively, at this point, I already knew. I drove this vehicle loads, so I didn't even need to review it to know what it can and can't do, but obviously I'm going to review it anyway. Yeah, I had a pretty good feeling it was going to get up this mountain, and I wanted to showcase just how good it actually is in snow, so I went for it. Obviously, first attempt, I tried to jump over that lip, and as you can see, it didn't, well, I think amazingly it flipped a hell of a lot of stuff would by then. So yeah, flipping wise, pretty damn deep. To be honest, tonight I've probably rolled it more than I've ever rolled it. Even doing the container contest in Drowned Lands, I've done that I don't know how many times, and I rolled this once on the container contest, and I purposely tried. I knew a sloppy bit of mud, and I went flat out into it, full lock. The left side of my wheels went in the mud, and I had a container on my back, and I finally made it tip. But I think that's the it was the only time I tipped it in the container contest. I've probably rolled it once or twice, like doing other things, but very, very often it just ends up back on its wheels. Probably about as good as the Tiger for ending up back on its wheels. And as you can see, I mean, it ate this mountain for breakfast, and that's why the other bit didn't get the thumbnail. Got here, I was like, well, we got the thumbnail, boys. I mean, yeah, it's definitely a pretty steep mountain. At this point, I was like, don't you dare. Don't you dare roll off. I was going to go, like, you can go obviously a bit further along the mountain, but I wasn't being careful on purpose. And we ended up, again, just a bit of an iffy bounce because I caught the nose, but obviously bear it in mind, it can happen. I think, what was that, 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6, oh, it might have been, I think I got 7 in total.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
That's right, bitch. So yeah, I didn't go back for that little tree. I went and kicked the shit out of its dad. That's how we do it. Anyway, flying off here, if you haven't noticed and I haven't said right now, this thing is built like a goddamn tank. I mean, look at it. 0 engine damage, 0 gearbox, a bit of suspension damage, fuel tank's fine, wheels are fine. One day, I'll convince you all of the Loaf's superpowers. I've been loving the music tonight as well. Got to put the old school tunes on. Can't resist. This thing, in water, reverses out just fine. Nah, I got in there, but I think that game might be 5-2 to the game. As you can see though, that like mushroom thing just in front of the beacons is the snorkel, so you can go pretty damn deep. It's basically, the truck can disappear underwater. And not just that as well, but it's actually like, you know, it just drives in water like normal. Some trucks the wheels start to float a bit and all sorts, and it can be a bit slow and iffy. Obviously, like I think was it the Cat CT680 yesterday, sort of floated, then it rolled over. Yeah, this thing, there ain't no floating, but it can go pretty far before it gives in. What I actually tried was driving pretty far in the water in a minute, and I wanted to see if I could repair myself underwater, but I can't. But as I'm reversing out, I stick the winch on that trailer. Not that it's insanely hard, but you know what I mean, like it's just reversing out like it's normal. So pulling power wise, it's funny though because the power to weight isn't quite full, and that kind of explains that last quarry hill. There is a tiny glitch here, and I apologise, but like I say, I'm about to come back with a van body, but this is the underwater just drowning it. And as you can see, it's taken a good old time to get the damage down. Like I say, I apologise for the glitch, so it did last a bit longer than that, but yeah, at this point I was like, I wonder if I had a van body, if I could repair myself underwater and then start up again, because I know you can start your engine underwater a bit, but I wasn't sure how much by. Back again. And just the reason I left this in is like flipping this thing over, especially with a van body, again, is no joke. Like, you watch, this is the Taiga, and I winch it to that thing next to my front end. I know I am on a bit of an angle, but I mean, it is a bloody Taiga with like mini monster truck wheels, and it's a beast, so yeah, that Azov ain't no joke to flip. And the power of the loaf winch got it done. I mean, look at it. Like, don't you dare nudge my loaf. Nudge my loaf. Sounds like a euphemism. Like, right, see you boys, I'm off to nudge the loaf. Or ask your missus, like, do you want to nudge the loaf? That's probably how you get slapped, but worth a try. Yeah, I mean, what I was basically trying was just waiting until it got damaged, and then I was going to see if I could repair it underwater and start her up, but because it's gone too deep, I'll just, it's low-hanging fruit. Yeah, I wasn't able to fix it and carry on driving. What you might be able to do, but you'd have to be bloody quick on it, it'd be like, when you're nearly fully damaged, click on repair, repair, and fix the engine pretty damn quick. Again, look at it, no engine damage, no gearbox, no fuel damage, no burst tyres. Alright, I took a hit on the suspension, but only half. Like, if you remember the Derry Longhorn, the 4520 came down here, it shattered it. So yeah, I mean, it rolled on its side a lot in this video, but that's just the look of the draw. Everything does when you fly off here. Well, everything except the loaf, as you've seen. Horse of a vehicle. So yeah, in conclusion, this is why I wanted to do it basically before the Derry. I reckon I might do the Derry tomorrow if I can, if I've got the time and if I've got the money. If not, though, it'll be like the day after. Yeah, in conclusion, this is just a bloody good, useful truck, and I like the fact that a lot of the trucks, like, say, the Taiga, are like that set up with, like, 3 axles and blah, blah, blah. I just like that this is an 8-wheeler. It looks bigger, chunkier, it's a bit different to drive. It's, price-wise, it's not bad. I think it's like 80 grand stock. So you're probably talking about this, like this or a Voron, for example. It's about 120 grand all fully upgraded. And yeah, it's just a very capable truck. I personally was a bit surprised it didn't get up that last hill. But like I say, the power to weight's not full as it could be, so maybe that makes sense. If you could dial the power up like 10% even, maybe it'd get up that hill. But as far as I've ever been using it to do missions and all sorts, I don't think it's ever failed to do a mission. And I just like the pace of it, obviously, particularly in high gear, but obviously, you know, I'm a fan of high range anyway, but yeah, it just feels like a really nice, comfortable speed, and once you get used to the slow steering, which isn't silly slow, and it's got, like I say, nice lock, I don't know, it's just quite nice. The steering feels quite nice and fluid and stable. You don't feel all too crazy, and all you got to do is, if you know you've not turned in time for a corner, just dab the handbrake for half a second, and in that little short time it slows you down. The wheels will catch up to what you want to do, and you're generally fine. So yeah, I'd definitely recommend getting it. It'd take you just over an hour really on the container contest to earn it, so yeah. This, just one last little thing, is just the magic of the loaf again. Eyeballed this little barrier, I was like, what's going on in here? I started laughing at this point. The silly little barrier doesn't realise who it's dealing with. Then there's no edits here or anything, by the way. The loaf just imagined it was on top of a Tatran and it happened. And look, I'm in the loaf. Stick a winch, like, get it up, bitch. The goddamn horse of a vehicle. See, in this life, it's not always what you know, it's who you know. And when you've got mates, when you've rescued as many vehicles as this has, you've got mates. So I don't want to hear I can't get over a barrier. It knows people. I mean, look at it. If police were looking for it, just done the Italian job, they wouldn't know where it is. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon. Of course he was there.